After enduring a season like the one we just had, the Raptors really need to clean house with some of their players. So in this video, we are ranking what the team should do with every player on the current roster. We go from the untouchable players all the way down to the players that really need to get cut. Let's get into it. What is up, NBA and Raptors fans? This is Amateur Hour Sports, the channel where you get NBA content with a focus on the Toronto Raptors at least 4 days a week. That's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday as our upload schedule. So if you like what you see from today's video and you want more of myself talking about the Raptors in videos just like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below to show your support to the channel. We're getting oh so close to 3,000 subscribers on the channel. Also, check out our Twitch, twitch.tv/amateurhoursports. We're watching along the New York Knicks versus Atlanta Hawks game tonight and the Miami Heat versus Milwaukee Bucks game tomorrow. So link is down below to check that out. But in today's video, like I said, we are ranking what the Raptors should do with every player on the current roster in this offseason, and we're going to switch up the vibe a little bit for this stream. We're actually going to do a tier list for this one. So the 6 tiers that we are going to classify every Raptor is from the bottom to top is the guys that are going to be definitely gone this offseason, then the guys who would be lucky to stay beyond this offseason, then to the guys that we should trade, the guys that we should consider trading, then the guys that we need to keep, and finally, the last tier, the untouchable players. So without further ado, let's get right into that tier list. So here we go, guys, a little bit of a different vibe for this stream, you know, going with the tier list for this one. So again, you see the tiers here, and not like normal tier lists. We're not going to go left to right from the results to the bottom. We're going to go bottom to top. So I know who I'm going to put on every tier. I'm going to fill out every tier from bottom to top and explain to you my reasoning behind it. So let's get started with that definitely gone tier. First one should come as no surprise if you saw the video the other day. Aron Baynes has absolutely destroyed his value since coming to the Toronto Raptors. He got signed for $7 million with an option of a second year for $7.35 million. There is just no way the Raptors are going to exercise that non-guaranteed team option for Aron Baynes. He is gone. He is straight up gone from the club after this season. And the second guy who is definitely gone is Rodney Hood. Rodney Hood came in as basically the only reason he's here is because we needed to balance out the salaries in the Norman Powell for Gary Trent trade. Gary Trent on his rookie deal, still not making a lot of money. Norman Powell's making about, what was it, $10 million. We needed Rodney Hood's $10 million. He's got a non-guaranteed $10 million for next season, and there is just no way that we are going to exercise that. I think if Rodney Hood was making $2 million, the Raptors still would not want to bring him back. He just didn't offer anything after coming to the Toronto Raptors in the trade. You know, I thought that, okay, that's like a wing scorer maybe. He can come off the bench, get a few points, and there was only maybe 2-3 games where he actually had an effect off the bench and he was injured all the time. But there's just no way Rodney Hood will be back for next season. So let's keep moving on. Let's go to would be lucky to stay. So these are the guys who didn't really make enough of an impact with the Raptors. So, you know, there's nothing compelling us to keep them, but we may just in fact do it. And the first guy on this list is Stanley Johnson. Now, a lot of you think that we need to bring back Stanley Johnson, but, you know, he's a free agent. And honestly, Stanley Johnson did not really offer us anything this season. He shoots about 38% from the field, about 32% from 3. His defense is pretty good, but I don't know if that warrants keeping him. I don't think he's done anything to warrant staying. The second guy who also fits in this, maybe a bit surprising, is DeAndre Bembry. You know, when the Raptors went through the health and safety protocol problems, 5 guys missed 5 games. We lost all 5 of those games. What has made the Raptors so successful over the years is that when guys get injured, we have that next man up mentality, and guys can seamlessly fit into the starting roles. And these two here, when they were called upon to fit into those bigger roles, step into a bigger role for this little few games to help us get through this, and they just didn't. Neither of them rose to the occasion. And I think Stanley Johnson more than DeAndre Bembry. I think DeAndre Bembry has done enough to stay. He's got a $1.9 million team option that I think we will exercise. I think he's done enough, but I think ultimately looking at his season, there just wasn't really enough to compel the Raptors. You know, they got to bring him back. So I think that for both of these guys, they'd be lucky to stay because they didn't prove anything beyond a reasonable doubt here. Now, the third guy also for this tier is Paul Watson. Paul Watson, you know, in his times on the floor, I think the start of the season, he really struggled with his defense and, not fouling people. But I think as a scorer, we've seen that Paul Watson's got a really nice shooting stroke, and when he is healthy, which wasn't a very often occurrence this season, that he can be a guy who can contribute to this team. But again, nothing about this season really compels you other than that 30-point game, which he followed up with a 0-point game in 22 minutes. So for Paul Watson, I think ultimately Paul Watson and DeAndre Bembry will stay beyond this season. Stanley Johnson, I don't think will stay, but I think all of them would be lucky to have a contract for next season. Now, the next tier is look for trade, and the only person on this part is Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry, again, is going to be making at least $22 million, I think, this season. I talked about him in the Monday video as well, where I said that his value has definitely dropped from that $30 million he was making last season, but I still think the Raptors don't have a super flexible cap, and if they want to bring back Gary Trent, that flexibility definitely decreases. I don't think we have enough money to bring back Gary Trent and Kyle Lowry, so why not look for a sign and trade for Kyle Lowry? It's better to get something than nothing. We won't get a fair return for him, but let's try to get something. And the reason the sign and trade situation has the capability of working is the Raptors have his bird rights. So if we sign him with the bird right means you can go over the cap to sign the specific player. So this would be great for contenders trading for Lowry, knowing that the bird rights are present. Miami, Philly, if they want to go be contenders, I think Kyle Lowry is a key piece for them to get to the next level. But I don't think that's going to be any more than $25 million, and I don't know if the Raptors are going to be able to afford giving him that. Ultimately, I can see him staying, but I think that the best course of action is a sign and trade for Kyle Lowry. Now, the next tier is the maybe explore trading tier, and this again could be controversial, but I'm going to toss Gary Trent on this list, and I'm going to toss Fred VanVleet on this list. Now, you saw in the intro, I actually have a Fred VanVleet jersey on my wall. I love Fred VanVleet. I absolutely love Fred VanVleet. I think he's a great player, but as far as the Raptors making a championship push, being contenders again, Fred VanVleet is the most expendable star on this team. Fred VanVleet is a great player. I think he was a borderline all-star. I think he could have slipped into an all-star team, but his skill set is very easy to replicate. You can find other guys like Fred VanVleet, and I think that the best way for the Raptors to be proper contenders is to get a just star ball handler, near superstar ball handler, and I think Fred VanVleet is the best guy to move on from in order to make that happen. Use Fred VanVleet as the trade bait to get that star/superstar ball handler. Now, Gary Trent, this is one where, it's a maybe. I would think that we'd keep Gary Trent, but I think it's a maybe. Gary Trent is very young. I think he has a very high ceiling, but, if you can find somebody who fits into your starting lineup a little bit better, then maybe explore trading Gary Trent via a sign and trade. Like maybe look at a guy like Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball, I don't think the New Orleans Pelicans have a huge interest in bringing him back. Maybe somebody like Gary Trent would be more suitable to them. And maybe Lonzo Ball, running point guard for us with his size, would be a great duo for Fred VanVleet in the shooting guard position. Fred VanVleet is a shooting guard trapped in a point guard's body. So if you bring in a point guard who is tall enough to have those assignments on defense like Lonzo Ball, then it would allow Fred VanVleet to take on a lot more of his natural abilities, whether it be on offense or defense. So that's a maybe, but I think both of these guys ultimately I would say just keep. But I think it's a maybe for these guys just to look at that. Now, let's look at the important to keep tier. This is the most populated tier on the list. So we've got Boucher, Gillespie, Jalen Harris, Kem Birch, Yuta Watanabe, Malachi Flynn. That rounds off the 6 guys important to keep here. I think that all of these guys have done enough to warrant being a part of this roster for next season. I'm not sure if any of them are going to be starting next season, but I think that this is a solid bench core to rotate with. I think Kem Birch has really showcased himself to be somebody you can rely on either as a starter or as one of the near first guys coming off the bench, your 7th or 8th man. Can put up, I would think he can put up like 11 points and 8 rebounds per game next season. And that makes him very useful and very important to this Raptors team. So that's Kem Birch. We'll talk about him. Then let's move on to Chris Boucher. If he didn't get injured, if he was available all season, I think Chris Boucher would really be in contention for 6th man of the year as well as the MIP award. The fact that the Raptors have him on such a cheap contract, I think he's making about $7 million next season. that is one of the best and most team-friendly contracts in the league. He has such a unique skill set, very good as an interior defender and very good as, I think his interior score is pretty good, but that 3-ball really came alive this season. Very important to keep. Freddie Gillespie, just because he's not making a lot of money and he's already tied into a contract, I think that that's a good guy to have as depth. Don't think he's going to be like a key figure next season, but I think that that's a good player to have in your rotation. Seems like he gets along really well with all the guys in the locker room as well, so I think that is a player you'd want to keep on your team. Jalen Harris has showcased in his limited time that he does have quite a little bit of potential as a scorer. He possesses some really good traits, and I'd like to get to know him a little bit better next season. Hopefully he can stay healthy, but I don't think he's going back to the G League anymore. I think that his role is with this Toronto Raptors team. Yuta Watanabe, I think, is important. Again, he doesn't have a guaranteed contract for next season, but very cheap and reliable. Good defense, and he's got good three-point shooting. Nick Nurse said it best. Yuta's three-pointing is good, but we need it to be scary. So let's make Yuta that really good 3-and-D guy off the bench, take his game to the next level, and I'm willing to wait it out and find out if he can hit that with the Raptors. And the last guy, Malachi Flynn, our first overall pick from the 2020 NBA entry draft. You got to keep him. I think he's got a lot of pure point guard tendencies that can really help this team in the future. Let's continue to develop him. I feel like every game he got better, he got smarter, and I think a full offseason under his belt will really help this team. Now, let's go to the near untouchable tier, because this isn't quite untouchable. I don't think there's really anybody that is completely untouchable. When you're looking at the guys in the team like Siakam and OG Anunoby, I would say that they're untouchable, but obviously, if you get just an offer you simply cannot refuse, then you take it. But I think for OG and Anunoby, again, such a unique skill set. There are some big basketball minds, big, basketball analysts who think that OG and Anunoby is like the best on-ball defender in the NBA, and I would have to agree with that. If OG can stay a full season healthy, he's definitely in an all-defense team, and he is in the conversation for DPOY. Not only can he defend the 1 through the 5 on the court, he can literally start as the center and be the guy guarding, let's say, Nikola Jokic on the other team. Plus, that developing with that offense, OG had that huge stretch where he's putting up 20 points per game. I think it was like 8 straight games where he had at least 20 points. OG Anunoby's only getting better. He's starting to develop himself as a 3-level scorer. He's great at finishing on the interior. That 3-point game is really, really coming down pat. Adding that mid-range game would make him just an elite 2-way player. And he's still 23 years old. Still so much room to grow for OG. Absolutely untouchable for me. And Pascal Siakam. You guys might want to trade Pascal Siakam, but his skill set is so unique. It is so unreplicated. It would be so hard to replace him. I think that the Raptors want to go win a championship in the next few years or want to go challenge. Siakam has to be a part of this team, but if we go get him a star, we need a ball-handling star to play. We don't be the ball-dominant player, and Siakam plays off. And we know Siakam is one of the best second options in the NBA, and that is nothing to be ashamed of. Anthony Davis is a second option. Guys like, let's say, Kyrie Irving have been a second option on a championship team. There is nothing wrong with being that second option. I think Siakam is definitely going to improve for next season. It's just, wasn't quite his season, but still terrific numbers. 21 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 4.5 assists per game, 45% shooting. There is plenty to like about Pascal Siakam. I don't think we could get a return suitable for what Pascal Siakam offers his team. Plus, with that offense, he's got great length on defense, great switchability on defense, moves his feet well. There's just so much to like about him. I don't think we can get a fair trade back. Pretty much untouchable for me. And there you have it. That is the full list. Maybe some controversial picks, but this is what I am completely happy with submitting. So again, maybe some controversial picks for this list, but this is what I truly believe the Raptors should do with every player here. I want to hear all of your thoughts and opinions on this list, and consider making your own list. I'm going to link the tier list down below, and you can post in the Discord, and we can have a discussion about what you picked. But that wraps up for me for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you are still here, be sure to like the video. If you did like it at any point, it goes a long way to help the algorithm, to help us reach some new viewers. And follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/amateursports. Again, we got a watch along today, a watch along tomorrow, and we're watching along plenty more NBA playoff games throughout the rest of the season. Next to my head is the subscribe button for the channel. Again, we're getting very close to 3,000 subscribers. There's also 2 other videos by the channel that you may enjoy, so you can check those out as well. And remember, at the end of the day, I believe what I say. If you disagree, that is okay. We'll see you again next time for another video.